Liberal Democrat spokesperson Munira Wilson.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm very pleased that we've got some proper time for debate today. Can I just record my dismay that our last debate on this bill was cut so short when we had so many important amendments to consider, spending more time walking through voting lobbies than scrutinising the laws that we are sent here to make. Can I start by talking about children in care and their relationships with siblings, as we've just heard, can be the most important connections they have. Too often these relationships are being strained or damaged by a system that just does not support them effectively. And to this end, I would like to also commend the work of the charities Become and the Family Rights Group, who've sought to keep siblings connected. And it's for this reason I warmly welcome the government's acceptance of Lord's Amendment 17. I would just gently say, the Minister said in her speech that it's a travesty that siblings have been separated, yet it was her and her colleagues who made Labour MPs oppose the amendment that came through from the Lords on this issue at the last round of ping-pong from my noble friend, the Baroness Tyler. So I'm glad they've had a change of heart and accepted her approach and put forward their amendment in lieu. And so could I congratulate and thank my noble friend, the Baroness Tyler of Enfield, who has been championing this issue for many, many years, and want to recognise her tireless work. And I also want to recognise the tireless work of the Honourable Member for South Shields, who I know has also been working so hard, as we've just heard, on this issue. This amendment addresses a critical oversight in our current regulations, ensuring that the bond between siblings is not severed simply because their care status differs. These relationships are often the only constant in a child's life. Protecting them provides a vital anchor of stability amidst the profound upheaval of new care arrangements. Now, turning to the government's amendments in lieu to Lord's Amendment 106. This amendment only asks head teachers to have regard for guidance on smartphones in schools, rather than simply mandating the existing guidance. Madam Deputy Speaker, young people themselves say they want a break from the stress of social media at school. Yeah. We all know the impact our phones have on our own concentration and focus. If ministers and honourable members in this House cannot resist the temptation to look at our smartphones during a debate like this, how on earth do they expect a 14-year-old to ignore a TikTok notification in a double science lesson? Yeah. According to health professionals for Safer Screens, a quarter of children's notifications go off during the day. I am deeply alarmed that our children's educational attainment should be hindered by an issue that is so simple to solve. And I appreciate the Minister's comments about guidance and asking Ofsted to look at this. After they made the announcement that they would include this in Ofsted inspections, I met a group of head teachers from my constituency, and they said, this is yet another thing you're piling onto the Ofsted inspection. Please, can you ask ministers to just get on and make this law, is what they said to me. Where schools have managed to ban phones during the school day, they've seen real transformation in pupils, going from being glued to screens to chatting, playing Uno at break times. Head teachers report significant reductions in incidents of low-level disruptive behaviour, lower in-school truancy, and children and teachers are reporting being happier at school. However, many head teachers are still battling to get their schools to this place. Our head teachers need proper support to do right by our children, where they're challenged by parents who want to still be able to reach their children even during the course of the school day, and to ensure that children have a healthy and safe education free from distraction. So I ask the Minister today and the Secretary of State, if she's listening, please just make this guidance statutory. And will she support schools with the tools and funding to manage this transition, to ensure that every classroom is a space where children can focus, can learn and thrive, smartphone free, unless they have a need for a device for medical reasons or for special educational needs or because they're young carers. Now, it's a strange irony that government demands endless evidence before reining in big tech, yet refuses a single review of its branded school uniform policy. Now, by rejecting Lord's Amendment 41B to review the effectiveness of their cap on the number of branded school uniform items, as opposed to the Liberal Democrat proposal of a price cap, Ministers are effectively asking the British public to trust that they have exactly the right answer. The amendment before us today is a significant concession to what we have previously put forward. It merely asks for a review of the policy after 12 months. We all, on all sides of this House, have a shared goal of tackling the cost of living for hard-pressed families. But ministers seem to lack the humility to admit there is a chance their policy prescription to bring down the cost of uniforms may just perhaps be wrong. The School Wear Association themselves have said that 61% of their members may well increase prices based on this item cap. Now, the government was forced to U-turn on winter fuel allowance for pensioners. They were forced to U-turn on welfare reform for those in receipt of benefits. So why won't they accept the offer of an off-ramp here to potentially prevent another forced U-turn somewhere down the line? What's to fear of testing their policy in a year's time? Just in case the uniform suppliers do indeed hike their prices in response to this policy, as the industry has repeatedly warned, and a basic understanding of market forces would suggest. They cite their manifesto as if it were a shield against better Liberal Democrat ideas, but a manifesto commitment is only as good as its delivery. Parents want action that will actually lower their bills. If the government is so sure they've got it right, they should have nothing to fear at all in a 12-month review. Now, on the theme of supporting families, I'd like to speak to Lord's Amendment 38. I must first offer my belated congratulations to the government for accepting the merits of part of the Liberal Democrat position in their amendment. Having spent an entire year opposing our efforts to ban big tech from collecting the data of under-16s, it's heartening to see ministers finally recognise that we can no longer allow social media giants to treat our children's personal data as a commodity to be harvested for profit. It's also welcome the government has moved towards the Liberal Democrat position of age ratings for social media by accepting that children of different ages will be affected by the online world in different ways. But the government has still not gone far enough. Their amendment only says they may make provisions to tackle these issues, not that they will. Their amendment also remains silent on the predatory nature of addictive design by ignoring the infinite scroll and psychological triggers engineered to hijack a child's attention. The government just simply fails to recognise that this amendment will leave parents, families, children, and indeed the government itself fighting against big tech with one arm tied behind their backs. The recent court cases, US court cases against Meta and YouTube confirm what we already knew. These apps are designed to keep our children hooked.
Would my honourable friend accept the intervention?
I will happily give away.
I'm grateful to my honourable friend, and I'd like to congratulate her for her work on this issue. And she's absolutely right that age classifications that tackle the social media companies, not going after their children and their rights, is what matters. Would she agree with me that recent research by PISA of covering 7 internet activities, 15-year-olds in 47 countries, has now found conclusive evidence that life satisfaction is lower at high rates of social media use for 15-year-olds? Doesn't that make this even more urgent to act upon now?
I thank my honourable friend for his intervention. I couldn't agree with him more. There is such a plethora of evidence out there that we have to act, and we have to act now. I really simply cannot understand why the government isn't committing to actually doing something soon. Now, I was talking about the US court cases, Madam Deputy Speaker. One document revealed that Meta executives claimed, and this is a quote, "If we want to win with big teens, we must bring them in as tweens." Madam Deputy Speaker, that's my 11-year-old daughter Meta is talking about. Another internal memo showed that 11-year-olds were 4 times more likely to keep coming back to Instagram compared with competing apps, despite the platform requiring users to be at least 13 years old. This needs to be big tech's seatbelt moment. We need to stop treating social media use as a behavioural addiction and start recognising that it is driving substance-style, addiction-style behaviour, just like drugs and alcohol. That is why we need a ban on harmful social media for under-16s, and that is why we need clear and explicit recognition from the government that they will tackle addictive design, not just harmful content. Finally, we remain particularly concerned that their reporting timeline is a timeline to kick the can down the road when parents and families are contacting MPs in their thousands calling for urgent action. Now, speaking as and on behalf of parents in Twickenham, in my constituency, and the length and breadth of this country, we are not interested in a report in 6 months' time. We are not interested in their maybes. We are not interested in the nuances of whether it needs primary or secondary legislation. We want a clear, cast-iron guarantee that this government will protect our children online, and we want to know when they are going to act to do that. The Liberal Democrats remain ready and willing to work with the government to improve this legislation, but our priority is ensuring that changes are implemented without further delay. This is not a new problem, and the Children's Minister himself brought forward legislation to start to tackle this problem early last year. And if the government is interested in poaching more Liberal Democrat ideas, and I'm happy to remind the House of our position, we've called for film-style age ratings for online platforms enforced by Ofcom, including a ban on harmful social media for under-16s. This is a sensible approach that doesn't ban useful sites like Wikipedia or TripAdvisor or important tools for family life like WhatsApp. It doesn't vest huge powers within the hands of one individual. It doesn't write a blank cheque for an unnamed individual to decide what our children may or may not access, because after all, we do not know who any given future Secretary of State for Science and Technology may be. Our approach was specifically dismantle the addictive architecture of big tech, encourage social media giants to regulate the content published on their platforms, and spark a race to the top that prioritises safe, enriching and healthy online spaces, not just for children but for all of us. Now, before I end, Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm concerned that the government has not listened to sector experts regarding their plans for pupil admission numbers. To quote the Chief Executive of the Confederation of Schools Trust when she gave evidence to the Bill Committee, the powers that this bill is giving to the schools adjudicator would be, I quote, a source of concern due to the, I quote, potential conflicts of interest that could arise when allocating to children to schools. So I asked the Minister today, would she be happy to look parents in the eye in her own constituency if her local authority asked the schools adjudicator to cut place numbers at a popular, high-performing school? Now, I recognise there have been some concession in the government's amendment today, but it's too vague in its assurances and open to challenge. And as the Right Honourable Member, the spokesperson for the Conservatives, said, it is only asking the schools adjudicator to have regard to the performance of a school. We cannot support it. So I implore the Minister today to start listening to parents and carers and indeed young people, whether it comes to school places, whether it comes to the cost of school uniforms, whether it comes to smartphones in schools or access to social media. Don't let ideology or pride get in the way.